And now for the moment of silence. Today is Monday, November 11th, and it is a B-Day. And for lunch today, we'll be having orange chicken or square pizza with veggies and Asian rice. And for breakfast tomorrow is breakfast parfait or breakfast sandwich. Now for today's wacky holiday. Today's wacky holiday is Veterans Day. Thank you to all of our veterans.
Did you decide to serve in the armed forces?
I decided to join the Air Force because I was one of those students that didn't really know what I wanted to be when I got older. And in high school, all my friends were like, I'm going to be a nurse, and I'm going to be a doctor, and I'm going to be a lawyer. And I really didn't have an idea of what I wanted to be. So I decided to join the Air Force so I had more time to learn and grow and figure out who I was and what I wanted to be.
Oh, that's cool. What branch of the military were you in?
So I was in the United States Air Force, and no, I did not fly a plane.
How many years did you serve?
I was in for almost 8 years.
Oh, wow. What job did you have while serving?
So I was security forces, which is the military equivalent of like a cop, but I worked mostly security, nuclear security, and then combat arms, which is teaching people how to fire their weapons for deployment or for everyday duty.
What does Veterans Day mean to you?
Veterans Day means to me really just this recognition that you still sacrifice a lot when you join. You make a decision to give up your home and your family and the people you've known to go somewhere you've never been and meet new people and try scary things and do it for the sake of your country. And Veterans Day is a day that we use to recognize people who have done that. And for someone like me who did not sacrifice as much as there are others who may have sacrificed their life or their limbs, I did sacrifice a lot, and it's nice to be recognized for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What is something you wish the general public understood about Veterans Day?
That it isn't for our fallen veterans and our fallen soldiers. It is for the veterans who are out and about serving their community in different ways other than in military service. People like me who became a teacher, or others who might have become law enforcement or doctors or nurses or any other form of service. Veterans naturally are attracted to serving their community and trying to give back to people, and when we get out, we still do that. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here with Mr. Waller. He teaches 8th grade social studies, and we're going to ask him some questions. What made you decide to serve in the armed forces?
That's a great question. I would say I kind of, when I was in my late teens and very early 20s, I just kind of felt like lost, like kind of just didn't really know what I wanted to do. And my younger brother and I got to talking about maybe joining one of the branches of the armed services. And he actually went before me and met with somebody in the Coast Guard. I had no idea what it was, and came back, told me about it. I was intrigued. So I went to the recruiter's office and kind of listened for myself as like firsthand experience. Really liked the motto, the message, and their mission, and I've been listening. And for me, it was like, it's been one of the greatest decisions that I ever made, to be honest. Yeah.
What branch of the armed forces did you serve, and what made you pick that particular branch?
So I was in the United States Coast Guard. If you're not familiar with that, its whole mission, its whole task is search and rescue, and then also protection of U.S. borders and interests. So we do anything from, if you're lost at sea or injured at sea, come out and go get you, to border security, to drug interdiction, to migrant interdiction, all sorts of stuff, even environmental protection agency like law enforcement on the high seas and within the United States too. So again, it just kind of goes back to, for me personally, I knew I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself, something that mattered, something that had an effect, but I didn't necessarily want to have to go to war, was kind of where I was at, especially after 9/11. I knew I wanted to be part of something, but wasn't really sure. And when the Coast Guard came along, it kind of fit my personality, like being able to help people, being able to educate people. And then again, it fulfilled just being part of something that was much bigger than myself. Like decisions I made things that I was a part of, the job that I ended up doing for 5 years, it had an impact. It made a difference, and that's what I was looking for ultimately. And didn't really know it, but now reflecting on it almost 15 years later, that's why I chose that particular branch of the service.
Okay. How many years did you serve in the Coast Guard?
I always round up to 6 because it's easy, because I actually legitimately served 5 years, 3 months, and 9 days. So it was my standard contract when I enlisted was 4, and then I had to do what's called an extension to do the job that I ended up doing, and that was a little over almost 15 months commitment beyond that. So that's why I say 6, because it's easy to round up, but it's 5 years, 3 months, and 9 days to be exact.
Nice. What job did you have while you were serving?
So everybody in the Coast Guard, when you go through boot camp, when you come out, you're either you're what's called a non-rate, so you're usually an O2 or an E2, which means you're enlisted at a second pay grade. So you really don't have a particular job. I was what was called a seaman apprentice. I went to my first duty station in Miss Robinson, in Michigan, to where I became qualified as a E3, advanced to seaman, and you're doing all sorts of stuff. So I was doing like deckhand things, learn to carry, do like what they call boarding team members. So basically you're doing kind of like a cop on the water, looking at anything from like boating violations to somebody who's been consuming alcohol, doing things with drugs, and then also like search and rescue stuff. And from there, I went and got on what's called an A school list. So that's where you become actually specialized and you can actually get a job or an MLS in other branches. And from there, I went into avionics electronics technician, and I ended up working on the Coast Guard's version of the Black Hawk, if you're familiar with that big helicopter. So that was my main job, was working on anything that was power or electrical based systems on that helicopter when it was down for maintenance or just had broken issues, which was all the time. And then the secondary position, I became what's called an air crewman. So basically you fly in the back seat of it. And depending on your position or depending on the mission, it could be anything from, search and rescue to, like I said before, with, migrant interdiction or drug enforcement. And I did that for, I'm trying to think, just over 3 years. And I was in Clearwater, Florida. And that was an unbelievable experience. I've been to Guantanamo Bay. I've been to almost every single island within the Caribbean. I've chased drug boats on the high seas. So I've done some pretty cool things that I won't give it all away because I share those stories in my 8th grade class, but I did a lot of cool things based on that experience, yeah.
What was your favorite place that you were stationed at?
I have 2 that I really like. West Michigan, because I ended up meeting the person who then became my wife. So that obviously I can't not say that was important. And plus for me, that first couple of years growing up in Chicago, it was close. If I had leave, I could go home. It was only a 4-hour drive. So it made the transition from civilian life to active duty life a little bit less of a shock, so to speak. But my ultimate was definitely when I was stationed in Clearwater, Florida. Just from there, being in aviation, flying almost every single day, and then going on deployments all over the Caribbean and doing that, the high stakes, high risk missions was exciting. And I met a lot of really good people that I'm, even all these years later, 15 years later, actually one was just at my house this last weekend. I've got some really close friends. So I think from that would definitely be my favorite just because of the experiences I had. And obviously it's Florida. It's warm weather.
Florida.
I grew up in Chicago, so I didn't have to shovel snow anymore. But yeah, I would say probably those 2.
What would you tell a young person that is trying to decide on whether or not they should serve in the armed forces?
That it's a big commitment, and that it's not something you can kind of just go into. I don't want to say it's necessarily a calling, because I think a lot of people could benefit from being part of something that's bigger than themselves, just for one part of their life to do something that isn't just for me, for yourself. You're making a decision that impacts others directly. But I would say research. Do all the research you can of all the branches, find out what they have to offer, think about, which is extremely difficult, but think about what you want out of life. Like after the military service obligation is fulfilled, what are you going to do then? Which one of these branches of service has an occupation that you think you may be able to do long term? Like aviation was fun, I enjoyed it, but it's not what I wanted to do for the long run. So, for me, when that came due, when my contract was expiring, I knew that it was my time to get out. It just wasn't what I want to do. I'm doing the occupation now that I wanted to be doing. So I think if you understand that it's commitment, that you're not necessarily in control of your own life anymore, it belongs to someone else, i.e. the government, and that it is demanding and it's high stress, and you're going to be around people that, from all walks of life that you may not know, But, you know, if you can handle those things and you're able to work hard, and, you know, I think it can be a really, really positive thing. But my biggest, without being too long-winded, is definitely do the research. Find out which branch offers what you're looking for, because they all have benefits.
What does Veterans Day mean to you?
It's changed over time. When I first got out, I didn't really want to acknowledge that I had served. It's not because I was embarrassed or ashamed. It's not at all. It's weird how, as a veteran, you almost, well, I personally, I can't speak for all veterans, but I started to like compare my service to somebody else's, and sometimes I felt guilty. Like, I have some friends that I grew up with that were in the Marines, and they did tours in Afghanistan, tours in Iraq. And, you know, they, to me, when I think about veterans, like, that's an ultimate sacrifice. Yeah, I gave up 5 years of my life, and I had to live where they told me and go where I wanted and where they wanted and all that. But I just felt like, for me personally, after I was discharged, that I hadn't lived up to what the day meant. And now, having years of reflection with that, I think that it's just, I have to realize that you're part of something that not everybody else is, and that not everybody serves, and to just kind of be okay with my service is different than someone else's. Does that make sense? So to me, it's just a day of appreciation.
What is something you wish the general public understood about Veterans Day?
That, I mean, everybody is, you know, Tennessee's an interesting thing because most people you come in contact with are pretty appreciative of what you've done. I would just say, just realize and recognize that, you know, any level of service that anyone did, it's a commitment, it was a sacrifice, and just be thankful that they did that. Especially with how trying last couple of years have gotten. I think people forget that everybody's human and that you may not agree with somebody, but at the end of the day, there are those who work with you, or, you know, maybe live next door to you, or whatever that you come in contact with, and they have made sacrifices. So I think just be appreciative of that, and realize that for some people it's not a joyful day because they also think, you know, about maybe people they've lost, or, you know, whatever. I know that's Memorial Day, but you understand what I'm saying. So I think just be thankful.
What helped you realize that teaching is what you wanted to do after you left?
So it's really cool. I don't want to bore everybody, but when I was fresh out of high school, I worked in a recreation department, and I taught younger kids like how to do sports and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. And then you fast forward to when I was towards the end of my enlistment at the air station. We were really big on working with the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts, and some veterans, like retired you know, veterans, like elderly people. They would come to the air station and they would want tours and want information about what we're doing. So, you know, you'd take them, you'd walk them through a helicopter, you'd show them all the systems, put on helmets, all the stuff, like, you know, do cool things and, you know, explain what the job is. And I realized in that moment that I really, really, really liked that. It made me feel like alive. Like I just enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed the Coast Guard job, but I was really worried when I was getting out of what I was going to do next. And it kind of, teaching was kind of like a blinker, like, hey, you know, you like talking to people, you like answering questions and educating them about things that you may know. So I was like, all right. And then actually when I got out, I went back to college and didn't do that at all. I ended up working in a bank for several years, and same kind of thing. Just realized that like I liked instructing people on, you know, how to do processes or information. And I was like, okay, I got to do this. So I went back to school again, and that's kind of how I became a teacher. So for me, it was just kind of like, I saw it, I ignored it, but then I saw it again. I was like, okay, I can't ignore it last time. I got to do this. So that's kind of how it happened.
Just clicked.
Just clicked. Yeah. It's not for, this job isn't for everybody either. You know, not by any means. There's a lot of challenges. So, but.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So what made you decide to join the Armed Forces?
I had no idea what I wanted to do after I got out of high school, so that was the first thought to my mind, was just to join the military and get a career.
And what branch of the Armed Forces did you serve in?
I served in the U.S. Army.
And how many years did you serve?
13 years.
And what job did you have while serving?
I was in military intelligence, security communications for the White House and the Pentagon.
Could you tell us more about that?
I can tell you a little bit about that. I did serve in many different places: Fort Meade, Maryland, Fort Detrick, Maryland, the White House, the Pentagon, doing intelligence work on South America and Russia.
And what would you tell a young person that is trying to decide on whether or not they should serve in the Army?
If you don't know what you want to do after you get out of high school, I recommend the military. Choose a career and a profession that you would like to go into. I chose computers, and that's what the Army did for me. It put me into a career of computers, and I've been in it for over 40 years.
And what does Veterans Day mean to you?
Veterans are a special place, have a very special place in my heart. I currently run a nonprofit organization for World War II veterans and Korean veterans, and I love my veterans. They served, they kept our country free, and they give us the freedoms that we have today. So that's my take on Veterans Day.
And what do you wish people would understand about Veterans Day?
That veterans are not taken care of the way they should be. We have many, many veterans in this country who were harmed, have PTSD, have lots of limb loss, and many other ailments due to the military, and they're just not taking care of us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And now for birthdays. Happy birthday to Kelvin Evans. And now for sports. Basketball plays away against Mount Pleasant JV boys at 5 o'clock and varsity at 6. Battle Creek Middle School boys soccer tryouts will be held November 18th, 19th, and 20th. Any 6th or 8th grader wanting to try out will need to have a physical uploaded to Final Forms as well as cleats and shin guards. Please direct any questions to Coach Mullings at jmullings@mariek12.org. And now for today's vocabulary. Today's vocabulary is plethora, an abundance of something. Now for the joke of the day. What are 10 things you can always count on? Oh no, your fingers. Thank you and have a great day. Go Bears!